Hello, YouTube! This is Jensare, the Nerd Rage Ranter, and I'm presenting my next Versus video, and for once, not referring to myself in second person. So, for your approval, I present Darth Vader versus Exar Kun. I came up with this one on a whim, because I already had a Darth Vader script prepared for my previous Qui-Gon Jinn versus Darth Vader matchup, and I was halfway through writing an Exar Kun script for a different matchup that I decided to hold off on. So I put two and two together. So let's get underway. Darth Vader, formerly the Jedi hero Anakin Skywalker, was the Sith apprentice of Darth Sidious and was easily the greatest Jedi killer of all time. However, during a duel with his former Jedi Master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Vader suffered severe injuries, necessitating extensive cybernetic refit to keep him alive. His physical and force-based abilities were severely hampered, the weight of the prosthetics compromising his agility, and the lack of living tissue, preventing the force from properly flowing through his body. Despite his disadvantages, Vader adapted quickly, becoming the enforcer of the newly minted Emperor Palpatine. Darth Vader was finally beaten in 4 ABY by his own son, Luke Skywalker. However, Luke spared his life, rejecting the dark side of the Force and prompting Palpatine's wrath. Vader stepped in to defend his son, killing Palpatine, but suffering fatal damage to his cybernetics, which resulted in his death. Fallen Jedi Exar Kun was the apprentice of famed Jedi Battlemaster Vodo Siosk Boss, and was easily his greatest student in terms of raw skill, though his aggressive nature and extreme arrogance motivated him to go renegade in a quest for ancient Sith secrets. Tutored by the spirit of the ancient Sith Lord Freeden Nad, Kun fell to the dark side and was anointed Dark Lord of the Sith by a procession of ancient Sith spirits. Kun initiated the Great Sith War and devastated the galaxy for almost 2 years before he was betrayed by his apprentice Ulic Qel-Droma. With the Jedi closing in, Kun retreated to his base on Yavin 4 and began a Sith ritual, drawing on the shared life force of his many followers and using the energy to become a Sith spirit. Kun's spirit remained dormant on Yavin 4 until the establishment of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Praxium thousands of years later awakened him. When he began terrorizing the establishment, the Jedi fought back, and Kun was finally vanquished. As always, we begin with a comparison of their lightsaber and martial arts training. A lightsaber prodigy at a very young age, and one of the most accomplished duelists within the Jedi Order prior to his fall, Darth Vader was easily one of the greatest fighters of his time, with decades of combat experience against a wide variety of opponents. Vader is primarily known as a master of Djem So, a dueling-centric version of the fifth form with a strong focus on strength, though he included elements of all lightsaber styles in his personalized combat technique, with Makashi, Sarisu, Ataru, and Shien featuring heavily. Vader focused primarily on strength and precision, to compensate for the detriments his cybernetics imposed on his agility. Accordingly, he wasn't very nimble, though he was extremely sure on his feet. Vader was highly effective against multiple opponents and blaster-wielding assailants, no doubt taking advantage of the focuses of Shien and Sarisu. He was a capable, unarmed fighter and possessed excellent stamina, though this seems more due to his cybernetics than anything else. It kinda follows that the guy with metal hands would have no problems fighting unarmed. Vader has also trained in dual blade combat as a Jedi, specifically the Ataru methods, though he has never used it in live combat as a Sith Lord, appearing to prefer a single weapon over an array of blades. Vader was also a capable marksman, though obviously he preferred to avoid using blasters. Darth Vader's offense was utterly overwhelming, and his moves were completely uncompromising, crisp and unpredictable. His defense was strong, one of the prerequisites of the Gem So, which focused on defense and immediate counterattack. However, he did experience the occasional defensive lapse, though his armor allowed him to shrug off otherwise disabling lightsaber hits. Vader possessed a keen tactical mind, having learned from experience not to charge in unprepared. Overall, Vader demonstrated a strong and efficient technique. Though he lacked mobility, he more than made up for this through his tactical ingenuity. Exar Kun was also a lightsaber prodigy at a young age, and was considered unparalleled in his day, his only equal being his eventual Sith apprentice Ulic Qel-Droma. Kun's primary fighting style was Naiman, the jack-of-all-trades sixth form of lightsaber combat that emphasized moderation and balance. Kun's effectiveness as a duelist indicated his mastery of Naiman, though he completely ignored all of the ideas of moderation over power and fought with vicious fury. He generally focused on aggression and unpredictability, and was a wholly uncompromising fighter. Kun was reasonably effective against multiple opponents and shooters, and his frequent use of punches and kicks implied a high level of skill in unarmed combat. Kun has also demonstrated a high level of effectiveness in Jarkai dual blade combat, no doubt a result of Naiman's training in this area, and he was one of the early masters of saber-staff combat. Exar Kun's offense was powerful and utterly unpredictable, thanks to his tactic of constantly adjusting and readjusting his lightsaber's blade length and power settings in the middle of combat to confuse his opponents. His defense was capable. Kun's primary weakness was his inability to fight properly without the aid of the Force, and this shortcoming was the cause of his few defeats. However, Kun is otherwise an undefeated master who has never lost a serious lightsaber duel. His combat technique is masterful and highly effective, and while he is extremely arrogant, he has never let this blind him, and Kun was quite capable of being smooth and diplomatic when the situation called for it. Very tough to call. Here we have two of the greatest lightsaber masters of their respective eras, and now I have to figure out which one is better. Exar Kun has never lost a lightsaber duel, and has only been bested in combat when his connection to the Force was compromised, so his track record speaks for itself. But it should be noted that while Vader has been defeated several times, each time the odds have always been stacked against him. Either his opponent has previous experience fighting him, or he's drastically outnumbered. Add to this the fact that Vader has been active for over 20 years, while Kun was operating as a Sith Lord for maybe 2, and you realize that Kun just wasn't around long enough to encounter a truly worthy opponent, while Vader has fought several. For this reason, I declare Exar Kun and Darth Vader equal as lightsaber duelists. And now we compare their physical abilities and handicaps. Darth Vader suffered from hampered mobility thanks to the weight of his prosthesis and armor, but compensated for this with mechanically augmented strength and stamina. He has the ability to lift a full-grown human male off the ground with an outstretched arm. Thanks to his armor protecting his remaining organic components, not to mention a continuous dose of painkiller, Vader is highly resistant to pain and is able to shrug off otherwise disabling injuries. He has withstood immediate proximity to a grenade explosion and suffered only cosmetic damage to his suit. Though he was reliant on the respirator built into his suit to breathe, Vader could temporarily heal his lung damage through his rage, though only for a short while. Darth Vader has been shot, torched with a flamethrower, exposed to hard vacuum, even been buried alive, and he's still walked away. Exar Kun is a well-built human male with good strength and stamina, but he is still only human. He isn't very good at taking injury or pain and is essentially helpless without the Force. So here's the conclusion. Darth Vader is a heavily armored cyborg monstrosity. Exar Kun is a squishy little human thing. Vader's only weakness is Force lightning or other high-energy electrical discharges, and ironically, while Exar Kun is capable of lightning, he's never actually used it. Darth Vader gets the physical edge. And now we compare their Force abilities. Despite the detriments imposed on him by his extensive cybernetics and consequently diminished Force abilities, Darth Vader remains a powerful Darksider. His telekinetic abilities were highly advanced, and he has been shown incorporating these attacks into his lightsaber sequences, a technique heavily influenced by his knowledge of the Sith Dun Mosh tactic. One of Vader's preferred methods of killing was telekinetic strangulation, and he has even been known to use this against Jedi, breaking through their Force shields and choking them out. He has little difficulty with lifting and throwing massively heavy objects, and generally specialized in ruining people's days. Vader's telepathic abilities were also extremely advanced, and he's been able to contact and probe the minds of numerous subjects, both willing and unwilling. Vader has even telepathically assaulted enemies before, freezing them in place while he finished them. Due to his prosthetic arms, Vader is incapable of Force lightning, and any attempt to use it will only cause it to backfire on him. He compensates for this with the obscure ability known as kinetite, a blast of pure, glowing kinetic energy. However, he has only exhibited this ability once, while in close proximity to the Kyber crystal, an artifact that empowers Force wielders. Vader has also used Sith magic to turn a subject into a Rakghoul monster, though he only did this once, and was again in close proximity to another Force-boosting artifact, the Myrrh Talisman. Neither kinetite nor Sith magic are likely to come into play, as Vader is in possession of neither the Kyber crystal nor the Myrrh Talisman. He is also capable of using Tuta Minis to deflect and absorb blaster bolts with his hand. During his Jedi training, Exar Kun was known for his powerful connection to the Force, though he focused primarily on lightsaber combat. Accordingly, his Force abilities were little used, aside from frequent uses of Force pull to retrieve lightsabers. Despite this, they were extremely powerful. Using telekinesis, he's used powerful Force pushes to thrash about opponents, and he has even beaten the Force shields of powerful Force wielders and taken objects from them, such as lightsabers or holocrons. After he fell to the dark side, he began studying Sith magic and alchemy, mastering many arcane and powerful abilities. His signature power was a blast of raw, dark side energy, which was his favorite alternative to Force lightning, which he was also capable of. The destructive potential of this ability was practically unlimited, but he could also use it in a more restrained manner to incapacitate targets. Kun also utilized some sort of Sith spell to kill the aged Jedi Master Odan-Ur, though the specifics of this spell are unknown, and it is possible it may have been a simple, pure telekinetic attack. Whatever the case was, it was an extremely powerful, though rarely used, ability. Kun was also a capable user of another ancient Sith spell that allowed him to paralyze the entire Galactic Senate. While the magnitude of this ability is impressive, it appears that he cannot utilize it against Force wielders, as all the Jedi present when he performed it were unaffected. Kun also had a rudimentary understanding of Force-based illusions, though he has only used this ability for display purposes. He is also versed in many other skills and applications, though very few of these are actually useful in combat. Vader and Exar Kun seem to be polar opposites in their focuses, with Vader focusing on and frequently applying his more rudimentary applications of the Force, while Kun is much more reliant on arcane Sith magics. Ironically, for a Nyman practitioner, Exar Kun doesn't appear to favor the inclusion of Force abilities in combat, preferring to rely on pure blade work, so his combative Force abilities, accordingly, display less variety than Vader. However, their magnitude is astonishing, especially compared to Vader, who, while impressive, simply doesn't compare. Exar Kun gets the edge in Force abilities. And now we compare their chosen weapons, in this case their lightsabers. Darth Vader's lightsaber, simply put, is a power tool. Following a heavy-duty design typical of Form 5 specialists, Vader's lightsaber features a large, ridged hand grip, a throttle-style activator, and a heavy emitter shroud. Mechanically, it utilizes a single, heavy-duty diadium power cell, and a red-hued synthetic crystal as the focusing lens. The lightsaber includes a dual-phase function, allowing Vader to switch back and forth between two preset blade lengths with the flip of a switch. The lengths he favors seem to be a standard blade length of 1 meter and a considerably longer 1.5 meter blade, allowing him to attack from a distance. Exar Kun wielded an archaic saber staff, a sophisticated design which featured a standard lightsaber hilt length. While being much more difficult to wield than a more contemporary saber staff design, Kun's hilt presented a much smaller target and allowed his lightsaber to pass for a standard lightsaber. Aside from the short hilt, Kun's weapon was extremely ergonomic, with a ridged hand grip along the middle of the hilt and quadruple blade guards on each emitter. The activation stud and the adjusts for the blade length and power were located adjacent to the hand grip. Much of the effectiveness of Kun's design came down to how he used it. He fought one-handed, and in combat he would continuously adjust the blade length and power settings to confuse his opponents. Darth Vader's lightsaber is of utilitarian make, and the dual-phase function provides him with more options in combat, but his design is comparatively basic next to Exar Kun's sophisticated weapon. Previously, I gave Count Dooku's lightsaber the edge over Darth Maul's saber staff because of the disadvantages of Maul's weapon, but I cannot do the same here simply because Kun's weapon has only provided advantages for him. His mastery of his chosen weapon was so complete that he's never been saddled with any of the weaknesses traditionally associated with saber staffs. Added to his tactic of continuously adjusting his blade properties in the middle of combat, and you essentially have a perfect weapon that Vader's doesn't even compare to. Exar Kun gets the edge in armament. And now, the verdict. Ordinarily, a contest of this sort boils down to the typical Sith warrior versus Sith sorcerer argument. Which is more effective, complete devotion to force abilities or combat skills? However, this one isn't nearly so simple because both opponents are absolute master duelists, so it's the other attributes that will come into play. Vader's cybernetics and his armor give him a massive physical edge, which bolsters his lightsaber skills, but then we consider Kun's unorthodox lightsaber and his unpredictable way of using it. Sadly, this all boils down to force abilities, and while Vader is undoubtedly powerful and varied in his skills, he simply can't compete with Exar Kun's sheer magnitude. In his defense, I will say that Vader could undoubtedly defend himself against Kun's attacks, but he wouldn't be able to adequately fight back, which would turn the fight into a countdown till death. I declare the winner Exar Kun. This is just my opinion, so feel free to chime in. Oh yeah, anyone with massive essay-style comments, please, just message me. I don't have a contact block, so anyone can send me something. This is Jensare, signing off.